welcome. So for a moment, I'd like to invite you to contemplate your place in this universe. So what do I mean? I just mean, consider for a moment who you consider yourself to be, who you think you are, on a just out of habit. And then consider the scope of creation. So I think I'm this person, and my domain of influence is, well, if we set aside the butterfly effect for a moment, my domain of influence that I think I have is extraordinarily small. I can't do very much. Don't even really seem to be able to manage my own life, much less anything else. And then when it comes to the scope of all of creation, it's just absolutely enormous. There's no known end to it. And it goes in, we could say, both directions in terms of inner and outer. There's outwardly, we can look out at the night sky if we're fortunate enough to be able to have a view of the night sky. And it just is so vast, it boggles the mind. I had an experience once many years ago, lying on a mountaintop, and it was not quite vertigo, but it was almost like vertigo. It was just completely surrounded by space, because I was right at the very top of the mountain. So everything, there were no trees. It was just completely surrounded by the night sky, just surrounded by stars. It's it just continues forever. And then inwardly, the same, we know, just like the stars are interspersed in vast space. I mean, the distances of space between stars are unthinkable, really. And similarly, the space between all of the different smaller parts of our bodies, just the same, the distance between each of the subatomic particles is like this. And so, and on and on and on. And we don't know what's the end of that. It just goes on infinitely in both directions, outward and inward. So this idea of myself, that I'm so concerned with, just take a look and see, aren't you just very concerned with this idea of yourself? Isn't that what you're preoccupied with all the time? Just constantly concerned about this idea of myself. And this idea of myself is at this, it's just this juncture between outward infinity and the inward infinity. And it's so infinitesimally small. There's nothing even here. There's no real substance. When we really look and try to find who is this one who I'm so concerned with, take a look right now. Remember, it's always the invitation. You have to look now. There's one who I consider myself to be. Let me find it right now. Look to see. Apart from the idea or the image, because those are transient, they come and go, they're always changing. But the actual thing, can you find it? And you see it's so thin, there's nothing really there. But even this which is so infinitesimally small, we can't manage it. It seems to be the problem, right? Because I can't manage this thing. And so I say I'm unhappy because it's not working out the way that I think it should. So I'm unhappy because I can't even manage this little thing. Now, for a moment, just look out or look in at this infinite expanse beyond the illusion of this self. And notice that this infinite expanse, both inward and outward, is functioning perfectly. My cat has climbed up and is threatening to knock things over. Very curious. So look and see this infinite expanse. And see that it is perfectly functioning without any concern on my part. So I'm so concerned, I'm so preoccupied with all of these little details about this little infinitesimally small thing here that can't even be found. What's going to happen 5 minutes from now? What do they think of me? How am I going to sort it all out? How am I going to gain security and safety? How am I going to make everything okay? How am I going to get rid of the anxiety? How am I going to get rid of the pain? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? Why is it like this? It's not fair. Day in and day out. And then look, see this infinite expanse, both outward and inward. Look how perfectly it works. And never once do we make the mistake of thinking, well, unless we're suffer from paranoid delusions, but otherwise we don't ever think I'm responsible for that. I've got to do it. I've got to make the electrons orbit around the center of the atom. I have to make the planets go around the sun. I have to make the galaxies spin. I have to do all of these things. Never once. But it's working without our interference, without our concern, without us having to do anything. Yeah, you might say, well, so what? Who cares? Yes, so the mind is always like that. But the invitation here is to something that's not the mind. The invitation here is to something, well, you might say, well, how could that be? What's not the mind? Or you might say, oh, yes, I already know that. Oh, yes, I know. I'm very advanced. I know that. I know that already. Oh, I've had all kinds of experiences. Oh, look at me. Look how important I am. I know. Oh, yes. Wink, wink. Nod, nod. I know everything. See, that's all just more of the mind. So the invitation is to what's not the mind. So the mind is everything that's known, everything that can be thought about, everything that can be named, everything that could be understood in the conventional way. The invitation is what's not that, what's beyond that. And so this is being pointed out. And in the process, we run up against the limitations of the mind, and then we see all the various strategies that are employed by the mind to try and keep itself in place. Now, these strategies, which we've covered many of them in the past, but there's more too that we haven't really talked about. So we'll cover some of them. So many of them, which we have covered, are anger, irritation, defensiveness, frustration, discouragement, disappointment. Arrogance, pride, impatience. But there's also, well, maybe we've talked about them. There's depression, despair, self-loathing, confusion. So these are so many different. Oh, here, also anticipation, excitement. Now, also interesting, like you've got despair on the one hand, which means literally hopelessness, which is a strategy. Hope is also a strategy. So all of these strategies come out of the woodwork when we're really sincerely looking. So if you find any of these strategies, great. Boredom, that's another one. Urgency, that's a good one. That really is a good one to get your attention. There's danger and it's now. Where is the danger? No time to look, it's now. So all of these things you see, and you just see how all of them, they just cycle one after the other, just keeping this thing going. And what is this thing? Look again, see, it's just this thin membrane between the inner infinity and the outer infinity. That's it. Because if you look out there, it just goes on and on and on and on, and it's vast and it's unknown and it's space. And if you look inside, it's also vast and unknown in space. Outer vast unknown space, inner vast unknown space. What is it that distinguishes these two? Why do we say it's inner and outer? And you take a look and find out what is that, and you can't find it. But it's persistent, the sense that there's something there. There is an outer and there is an inner. Fine. So we don't need to get rid of that. It's just to start to see more clearly, to see that this thin membrane, which we're so preoccupied with, and that we can't even manage this, which is so small. I know this is true because if you could manage it, you wouldn't be here. If you could manage it, you would be out there telling people how to manage it successfully. You'd say, you lowly fools, look at me, I've managed it all. Be a success like me. But you're too honest for that. You've seen through that in yourself. So then see through more, see that it really is completely unmanageable. You have tried everything that you know how to try. You've read the books and you've taken courses and you've tried religions and you've tried philosophies and you know all these different things. And you can sometimes think, oh, it's getting better. Look at me, I'm managing it. I'm in control now. But then the moment comes, and it comes very often if you are truthful, in which it's revealed I have no control. I can't manage it with success at all. And so I wrote about this once, and I've probably mentioned it before. When I was a child, and this was different age, you know, now you can't do this, it's illegal. But you know, they would have in the entranceway of the grocery store, there would be an arcade game. And my mother would leave me there to play the arcade game. That's the part that's illegal now. You can't do that. You can't leave a child unattended. But back then it was not, you know, whatever, it was fine. So I had many times when I would be there with the arcade game, but you had to pay a quarter to play. Well, I didn't have a quarter necessarily. I think rarely had a quarter. If I had a quarter, it was, you know, that turn went very quickly. I wasn't very skilled at the video game. So, you know, my quarter lasted 30 seconds and then here I am. Okay, now what am I going to do? Well, the video game would play this demo to entice youth like myself to come, you know, it's like a magnet attracting them to put their quarters in, but it would look like, you know, somebody playing the video game, and I would just pretend like I was playing it. So this is all good until that moment in which something that I do doesn't match up with what's happening on the screen, and then there's this disconnect, and then I'm faced with the reality, oh no, I'm not playing this. So this is like life, you know, we become very skilled at emulating control. And so the more skill we have at that emulation, the more we fall into our own trap of self-deception. And blessedly, and we don't think it's blessed at all in the moment, we think it's the opposite, but blessedly it happens that we are not in sync. And so these moments occur in which I think I'm managing it all, and it's revealed to me I'm not managing it. It's not working. So the more truthful we are, the more we can see that I'm not managing it. It's not that's not what's going on. Now, like I say, in the moment when that occurs, usually we don't perceive that as blessed at all, because usually we perceive that as painful because something's happening that we say, oh, this is terrible. This isn't what should be happening at all. So I feel bad. All of these experiences that I thought I had finally gotten rid of, they're here. Oh, awful, awful, awful. I feel so terrible. And so what we do is out of habit, we quickly try and resynchronize with the demo that's playing so that we can again fall back into our trap of self-deception. So what I'm inviting you to is to tell the truth just by looking right now and see that I am not managing it. I'm not succeeding in that my life ultimately truly is unmanageable, at least by me. I'm not able to manage it. Now, I'm not saying that there's not, you haven't developed certain skills as a animal. I'm not saying that. Of course you have. But what I am saying is that at the more fundamental level, that you aren't that animal, and you know it, and this brings about terrible, terrible distress. Because then you don't know who you are, and it provokes anxiety and all of the rest of it, all of these other various strategies that I've suggested, and more beyond that. And when these strategies surface, we either indulge them, or if we find them, like if we say, oh, excitement, oh, I like excitement. Oh, hope, I like hope. Hope is very good. I like hope very much. So we indulge those. But then the others that we say we don't like, well, we do our best to try and suppress them. But here again, the invitation is to see, look out there, just look and see. How far is that? Can you find the end? You know there's no end to it. And then inward also, can you find an end? So we have outward infinity and inward infinity, and then what is it that separates them? It has to be me, because I'm the reference point. I'm what differentiates between inner and outer. So what is this me? Look and see. Can you find it? Now, whatever it is, you can't really put your finger on it, but it's persistent. This sense of something there that separates inner and outer, it's very persistent. And this, which can't be found, so it's so infinitesimally small, we can't even find it. And it exists amid this infinity, both outward and inward. So in comparison, it's nothing. And yet even this we cannot manage. But then look and notice that the outward infinity and the inward infinity are functioning perfectly. Now, let's be clear, I'm not saying, according to the understanding of the me, who has an idea of what perfect functioning should be like for me, that's a whole other thing. But we're getting more to the point now. Sorry it takes so long to get to the point. But look and see that all of the ideas, now this is important. This is truly all the ideas that we act upon trying to manage our lives. So look and see what all those ideas are. I mean, you can't list them all off right now. There are too many of them, but you can just get a general sense of it. So you have to look and see that yes, I have all of these ideas about how things should be. I think that I should be comfortable. I think I should not have pain. I think I should not ever experience anger. I think that I should experience what I consider to be love. Well, that's dangerous because we think it's love, but what I think is love all the time for everybody. I think that I should never, ever do anything wrong, and I should always be right, and the weather should always be nice and agreeable, And I should, I mean, on and on and on. We have all these, my body should function the way that I think it should function, and I should live forever, of course. And I should be attractive to all people always, and so forth and so on. Okay. And never make any mistakes. Now we're just scratching the surface, but you get the idea. All of these ideas that we have about how things should be. So all of these ideas that I have about how things should be, which is what I'm using in as a reference so that I can determine whether I'm managing it successfully or not. So hopefully you're following along. Just look and see all the ideas that you have. Your ideas don't match up with anybody else's ideas, do they? I mean, they match up with, you can congregate with some people, and you form a club and you say, we believe in picking up trash, and you all agree on that. And then you get with some other people and you say, we all agree on we're pro-life. And you get together with some other people and you say, we all agree on the global warming is a man-made thing. And you get together with some other people and you all agree whatever. I mean, on and on and on. But you got all these things, you all agree on, Bitcoin is a good investment. And so all of these things, you can congregate with people around something, but notice how you leave that one thing, right? And all of a sudden it all falls apart. If you're with all your people who believe in picking up trash, but then you start talking about other political issues, you're not going to have coherence on that. So actually, we all have our own unique makeup of these ideas about how things should be. Not a single one of us agrees on all of them. But you and I and everybody else are living our lives, trying to manage them, believing that this is how it should be. This is definitely how it should be. And why do I think it should be that way? Because it's obvious, right? Isn't it just obvious? You say, well, it's intuitive. I just know that this is how it should be. Isn't that it? You just know. I mean, you might have some fancy philosophical argument for it if you're that sort of person, but you just know. You say, well, the Bible says so. Great, excellent. So the Quran says so, or the Vedas say so, or the whatever says so. You say, oh, that's why. Well, excellent. You've got some external reference point, but really, how do you know? And it comes down to just because that's how I feel. I just intuitively believe that's true. Now, again, notice infinity outward. So see, this earth has the same relationship with the sun. Still happening. You're not doing it. I'm not doing it. It's happening. And gravity is happening. And the Milky Way is happening. And then look inward at the infinity within, and you see still all the electrons orbiting. I'm not doing it, but there they are. They're doing it. So now again, what is it that separates the inner and the outer? So you have to look for yourself. You have to really look right now. So you just notice, you can tell what's outer. You notice it's outer. You see, you perceive, you're aware. And then you're aware there's what we call inner. So inner is whatever, however you understand that. I mean, it doesn't even have to be physical. It could just, it's inner. It's the inner experience. It's the inner energetic or the inner sense or the inner space or the inner whatever. But you're aware, you know, okay, here it is. This is here. Whatever it is, it's here. It's vast, infinite, inner is here. So this inner and this outer are here. And what is it that distinguishes or differentiates between them? And you look to see, can you find that? And you can't. But still, this persists, the sense of there's something there. Okay. Now, you see that everything on the outer and everything on the inner is working perfectly reliably. But here, on this unfindable membrane between them that I consider to be myself, I have all of these ideas about how it should be. And all these ideas, oh, here's another one. All these ideas, how do I know that it's not the way that it should be? Because it's not the way it should be. You got to know that, right? I mean, that again, that's why we're here. If that wasn't the case, you wouldn't be here. So there's a discrepancy between how it should be, according to you, and how it is, according to you. Well, now let's look to see how it is. So we've looked to see how it should be, and we see what all of that is. And now let's look to see how it is. So we say, well, how it is, that's just how it is. It's objective. It's everybody can just know that. How do you know how it is? If you're really honest, you're looking right now, look to see how do you know how it is? And you'll see that, again, how it is just some other ideas. That's all it is. And we say, no, it can't be. I feel uncomfortable. I feel bad. I feel the pain. I feel the discomfort. Mm-hmm. Well, you feel, and then the everything that follows that, the label is some idea. So we've got here how it should be and how it is, and both of these turn out just to be some collection of ideas. But we seem to be very, whatever it is that we are, which we can't really find what that is, but whatever it is that we are, we seem to be very entangled in this mess, clinging to how it should be and how it is, and we're certain that that those aren't matching up. So I've got to work harder. I've got to do more. I've got to figure it out, because I'm certain that there's just something wrong. There's just something wrong. Something is definitely wrong. Okay. So now, again, let's take a look and see everything, this infinite outer and this infinite inner, which we're not usually at all concerned with, but it's functioning perfectly. I mean, haven't you noticed that it's all just functioning perfectly? Not according to your ideas, but I mean, in reality, it's functioning perfectly, like it's actually happening. This is happening. What are the chances of this happening? If it was just total chaos, if there was no order, if there was no intelligence, how could this be happening? The very fact that that this can even be happening demonstrates that there's an intelligence and an order. And this intelligence and order is functioning absolutely perfectly through all of infinity, flawlessly, through all time and space. I mean, the fact that we are here is proof of that. This is happening. Consider for a moment, really, that in this vast field of total possibilities, which is infinity to the power of infinity. I mean, it's so vast. This right now is only one. So, you know, mathematically, we're talking about 1 over infinity to the power of infinity. This is not chance, you see. This is happening, demonstrates that there's an order and an intelligence, because aren't you perceiving order and intelligence? Now, this order and intelligence that you are perceiving, well, that is perceiving through you, that is the power of perceiving, which is absolutely perfect, flawless, which is organizing everything. I mean, your blood is pumping, nerve impulses are firing. The air is doing what it does. I mean, think about that. The air. All of the properties that are necessary for air to be, and then for this organism to exist in that, and for there to be a relationship that is mutually, you know, symbiotic, and for water to exist. All of these miracles that are plainly obvious. And I can't even manage my own infinitesimally small life that I can't even find. But I'm so certain, based on some foundationless set of ideas, that it should be otherwise. Starting to look a little suspicious, don't you think? So here's the punchline. Everything that is happening is perfect, flawless. Everything that is happening, everything that is happening is already that perfect intelligence, that perfect order. And only when it's taken out of context is it even possible to perceive it otherwise. So there's this terrible game, not a fun game, but a terrible game going on, in which we take things out of context and we grasp at them and we say, look and see. Look how bad this is. Look how wrong this is. This shouldn't be happening. You know, look, There's a baby out there freezing to death somewhere. That shouldn't be happening. Somebody dropping a bomb on a village right now. That shouldn't be happening. Somebody hitting somebody right now. That shouldn't be happening. Oh, and by the way, I feel really uncomfortable. That shouldn't be happening. So we're so certain it shouldn't be happening. Oh, this weather shouldn't be happening. Other people shouldn't be like that. Other people shouldn't be behaving like that. They shouldn't be treating me that way. Misunderstandings shouldn't happen. Hunger shouldn't happen. Insomnia shouldn't happen. Whatever it is that's happening shouldn't be happening. It's only when we grasp it and take it out of context, then we say, see, look at this. We shake our fists. Now, this is the hard part. The hard part is to really see this and tell the truth about it. And well, I guess I'm saying it's all hard to see it, to tell the truth about it, and then to really accept it. Now, to accept it, now we're taking a lot of time, but let's see. How do you accept it? So right now, just notice that clenching, notice the frustration, notice all the strategies, because we're provoking. Whatever those strategies are, remember, it could be boredom, frustration, arrogance, pride, combativeness, sadness, hopelessness or hope, all these things, excitement. So whatever it is that's happening, whether you think this is great, I'm really getting a lot out of this, or you're thinking this is nonsense, I don't understand this at all. Whatever it is, you just notice this. If there's a provocation, notice the strategies that are showing up, and then just look and see, tell the truth about what's happening. These strategies are all here trying to keep intact this false shell that I know how things should be, and I know that they're not that way. Now tell the deeper truth, which is, I don't know that that's actually true, that this is how things should be and that they're not that way. Actually, the real truth is when I let go of this very narrow grasping that produces a false, limited context, when I let go and surrender to this larger, infinite context, this is all simply happening, and it's simply happening with intelligence and order. So there's this intelligence and order that's simply happening, meaning outside of my management. So we're going through the steps, to see, tell the truth, and then to really accept. So this is maybe the most challenging, because a lot of us, we can kind of stop short and we just intellectualize it. We say, well, now I've got the right answer. I understand it now in mind. Okay, I guess it should get better. But notice then what we're doing is we're still clinging to the idea of how it should be. Like, I know how it should be. In order for things to be okay, I should feel good. But how do you know that? You don't know. It was, it's just obvious I should feel good. I mean, I don't like feeling bad. Yes, I understand. But how do you know that you should feel good in order for things to be okay? Haven't you ever felt bad, and then after you felt bad, something that resulted in something that was better than what had been before? Like, it's to feel, if you do something awful, you say something terrible to somebody and you feel bad about it. Doesn't that bad feeling potentially provoke you into some realization of something better. But here we're just clinging. I'm so certain I shouldn't feel this way. And anyway, it should be, if it's supposed to be some other way, there should be an announcement. I should just know. That's my own whiny ego, sorry. Perhaps you can relate, you see. So we're really starting to look and tease it apart and see how foundationless it is. Now, this all seems like terrible, terrible, terrible news because it leaves us with nothing, doesn't it? If you really look and see, it leaves you with nothing. What do I do? How do I get in? How do I do anything? I guess I'm just going to have to just wallow in depression forever now because I can't do anything. There's nothing I can do. It's all absolutely helpless. Now you're right at the precipice of the third step, which is to accept. So what is it to accept? To accept means to really, now this is the part that's to move beyond the mind. Because the mind can't do this part. The mind can't do it because the mind is wanting to have power over its own domain. It wants to be the ultimate authority. It wants to be the emperor. And it's not suited for that. Because it just can't. So if we're looking for the mind's buy-in, it's not going to happen. What can happen, however, and this is why I take a very negative approach. I understand that, but this is why I take a negative approach, is that we have to demonstrate to ourselves the absolute devastation of allowing the mind to continue its delusion that it is the rightful emperor. This is not to make the mind bad. It's just to finally clarify that this is a total disaster, absolute disaster at every level. At the individual level, at the family level, at the interpersonal level, at the community level, at the political level, the worldwide level. See, it's an absolute disaster. It's complete disaster. And every solution is a partial solution, not a whole solution. It looks great in isolation, even sometimes works great in isolation. But on the scale of the whole, it does not work because you have to rob from Peter to give to Paul. So we want to see that my life is unmanageable. My life, which is infinitesimally small, I don't even know who I am and I can't manage it. It's so small, it's so insignificant in the bigger picture, and I can't even manage this. But everything in the whole is working perfectly. So all that's happening here is that I'm identifying as this whatever, some fabrication, and I'm taking this collection of notions out of context, and I'm clinging to them, and I'm saying this is how it should be and this is how it should not be. And I know it just because it's intuitively known. And then C, A, I don't know that. B, it's so painful. You have to see that too. It's so painful. It's so profoundly painful, isn't it? I mean, every day is so painful because of exactly what I'm pointing at. Not for any other reason. We think out of the delusion, we think it's all of these other things. It's all we think, blame it on everything else. But as I often invite us to see, even if I fixed all those things, even if I could manage everything, I would still be unhappy. Because fundamentally, I'm telling a lie about who I am. And this lie of who I am is constantly having to isolate, defend, and justify. And it does that by clinging to these ideas of how things should be and how things should not be. So we want to see this, and we want to see the limitation here. And then hopefully you come up against some of these strategies, again, whatever they might be, the depression, the numbness, zoning out, boredom, frustration, pride, anger, irritation, pain, depression. Okay, so we take ourselves right here, and then we see the hopelessness of it, and we've reached the absolute limit of the mind. The mind can't fix this, cannot. You have to see that it can't. There's no way. You've exhausted it. There's no way to do anything with any of this. How could it? So the third step is the acceptance. Now, to accept is just to finally surrender. Like you just open your arms wide and fall. So this whatever this is that we've considered ourselves to be, here we are. We're just this thin membrane between inner space and outer space. And now we just surrender completely and just fall into space. No longer any inner space or outer space, just space, and just fall. You just let go. So see that that's possible right now. You just fall. And whatever is here is here. This is not about how it should be. It's not that we have to see that just has not worked. So the falling is not a promise that you're going to have the experience that you think you should have. The falling is finally don't grasp at any of the notions about anything. Don't make any effort. You tell the truth, which is I've always been falling. It's always been unmanageable. I've never been able to do anything about it. I've never been able to fix it. I've never been able to get rid of any of these things. I've never been able to do anything. You just surrender to that. Don't make any effort right now. Whatever it is, whatever things surface, whatever is here, whatever the experience, it may be anguish, it may be pain, it may be so many things, but you just don't make any effort. Finally, be so fully at rest that you just are not going to make any effort. You just are completely surrendered. You tell the truth, which is that you're only falling. And there's nothing to grab hold of. There's nothing that can save you. There's nothing, you don't have wings. You're not going to flap your wings. You're not going to land anywhere. There's nothing here like that. There's no end. There's no way to stop this. So you see that what this attempt to stop, we've had it all inverted. The truth is to stop, but we think I have to stop this. To stop means to stop trying to stop it, to just allow yourself to fall. This is the acceptance. Now, the mind may at first freak out, but you have to see that that freaking out requires that you do something. You have to indulge it. You have to grasp something and make an effort. So don't make any effort. The miracle that's available here is that you're just simply allowing, you're accepting there's just this falling. That whatever surfaces, it's just, it comes and it goes. It comes and it goes. There's nothing for it to latch onto, nothing to latch onto it. And you really allow, accept, and you experience this miracle that everything is actually taken care of. Everything. The same as the stars are shining, the same as your heart is beating, the same as the water is flowing, the same as this whole universe is universing. It's all taken care of. You don't have to do it. So now, look and see, who are you now? And you have to look without trying to stop and get hold of something. Not to objectify that. If to objectify, you have to make an effort, but look now as you're just falling without any effort. See who you are. You're not a good person. You're not a bad person. You're not an intelligent person. You're not a stupid person. You're not a winner. You're not a loser. Any answer that you come up with, you see that answer is just coming and going. You don't make any effort. And you know, here, it's obvious, I am. I don't have to make any effort for that. I am. I am. I am fallen. Not making any effort for that. That's just happening. I am. Everything else there has to be effort to take hold of it and try to attach it to I am. I am. What am I? Oh, I'm a bad person. Oh, I am. What am I? Oh, I'm a good person. You see, it requires effort. You got to hold on to that. Don't make the effort. So it's a totally different way of recognizing yourself, not as something. And it's truthful because it requires no effort. It's always true. It doesn't change. It's not one day I am and another day I'm not. Because we know everything else changes. One day I'm convinced I'm a good person, the next day I'm convinced I'm a bad person. But I am. Just notice I am. And that this mysteriously, the entirety of all of creation is happening perfectly. And the instant I stop taking it out of context, I am that perfect happening. I am that. whatever the content. I like the content, I don't like the content, I feel good about the content, I feel bad about the content. It's beside the point. To notice that I am that perfection. I am that. I am. So this is step one in the larger process. So step one is to recognize that I am this openness. I am this formless consciousness, undifferentiated. I am prior to all phenomena. Step two is the answer to the question that arises often, which is, okay, but what do I do with this? What's the practical value for me? And so step two is that we see, and it's a continuation of step one, in order to get to step one, we have to tell the truth. We have to see what it is that I've been doing, the lies I've been telling and believing, in order to produce the delusion that's so painful. So I move from the delusion into the opening of the pure essence prior to the contraction into that form of suffering. And then, so we move from form to formlessness. So the form of suffering to the formless in which no suffering exists, but in which all the totality of all potential exists. And so step two is then to move from formless to form again, so that we have this, it's like a dance, and it's a seamless whole in which we don't ever have a landing point at which we say, here, I finally identified what I am, but rather there's this movement, and it's a dance in which there's just simply feedback. It's just there's a movement, and then there's feedback, and there's a counter movement, and so it's just a response. It's a responsiveness of this intelligence. So we move from form to formlessness, and from formlessness we begin to imagine the possibility of unconditional peace expressing in my life, in my mind, my body, my relationships, my family, my community. And here we just see whatever the habits and conditioning are that interfere or object to that. So we're just at the level of imagination. We're not demanding that it must be manifested at a gross level. We're just exploring, just in imagination, where truly anything is possible. So there's no limitation here other than the limitations of our own conditioning. And those limitations can be changed, but only through pure seeing, not through reaction at the level of the conditioning, which only reinforces it. So we start from formlessness. So just for a moment, notice this wide openness, this infinity that is perfect. And then imagine this perfection expressing in your body, in your mind, in your relationships, and in your community. And just notice what objections surface. They could be memories, thoughts, beliefs, sensations, images, whatever they may be. Just notice them. and just see them non-judgmentally. That's all. So, and if you notice that you have a hard time seeing them, if you notice that you cringe, flinch, you try not to see them, you try to justify, you just see that, you just notice, oh yeah, that's what I do. Not so that you can change it, not so that you can have some new formula that you're going to apply, but so that you can just see it. That's all. We want to transform ignorance into seeing, just pure seeing. So ignorance requires effort. Ignorance requires that we turn away, or we flinch, or we close off. But pure seeing is effortless. It just requires that we don't make the usual effort. So just notice what normally happens. You see it happening, or you see it starting to happen, and just continue to be open and see it. And then one more time, just let go of everything and just notice here at the heart of being this pure, undifferentiated awareness that you are, this I amness being. And then imagine unconditional peace expressing in your body, in your mind, in your relationships, and in your community. And just notice whatever objections are there, whatever surfaces, whatever your conditioning is. So it might be a thought, might be a memory, it might be whatever it is. There's some evidence that you hold in your conditioning that gives form habitually, rejecting this unconditional peace expressing fully and freely. And all we want to do is just see it. That's it. Just see that clinging, that tendency to cling to these notions, this conditioning. And just allow whatever is here. So allow the feelings. Sometimes there's an intensity of feeling in just allowing yourself to see what's here, to see the frustration, the discouragement, the disappointment, the anger, the self-loathing. It can be very uncomfortable. Just see it, allow the feelings. Don't make any effort to protect yourself. Don't make any effort at all. Just see. And then just notice if there seems to be any possibility, new possibility of the expression of peace in your life. Maybe very small, but even just the smallest glimmer of that possibility realized is worth noting. So just notice whatever you notice. If you don't notice, that's okay too. But if you feel or sense that, yes, this seems possible, that there might be some opening, some new potential for the expression of peace in my life, just notice that and give thanks for that. And thank you, as always, for joining me today. Thank you for your courage and your willingness. And for those who are here live, we'll stay on for the Q&A. So let me end this recording now.